Good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode 76 of the 476ers podcast. We're going to talk about the Kings game from 2 nights ago, so stay tuned.
Yo. Yo. Justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhymes that are coming from my
Good morning, everyone. I am back and better than ever. Welcome to episode 76 of the 476ers podcast. Was a little bit busy yesterday or whenever you're listening to this, whatever. We're in a weird time vortex right now. A time away from time is what we are. Very Star Warsian. We are in a, I can't remember what that thing was called. Anyway, it's not important. Am I late? Am I early? If you ask Drake, better late than never. However, never late is better. While that's true, it's just backwards. You probably want to say never late is better, but I'm better late than never, right? That makes a little bit more sense. You know what I mean? In my opinion, but that's not what this is about. This is not about Drake. This is about basketball. And we're going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about Drake from State Farm. So Sixers played Kings. An interesting game, a weird game, a very, very weird, odd experience. Aside from having to stay up late because it's a West Coast game, and the kind of high feeling you get from lack of sleep, I also just felt high because the game was so fucking weird. First of all, we end up in this weird back and forth with them. Now, listen, the Kings, for all due respect, the Kings have been playing well over the last few weeks. De'Aaron Fox looks like he's taking a bit of a step in front of us. And additionally, Tyrese Halliburton is legit. You know what I mean? Like, if it wasn't for LaMelo getting into the starting lineup and playing really, really well, I would say that Tyrese is probably my rookie of the year. But just because he's just a better defender, you saw a couple times him just lock up Shake or, being active in passing lanes, a great nose for the ball, so his shot is hideous. I hate his shot, his set shot. He doesn't really have a jumper per se. It's more of a set shot. It's very Jason Kidd-like. Jason Kidd in his not Jason Kidd in his prime. He couldn't shoot in his prime. But by the time Jason Kidd could learn how to shoot threes, there was no off-the-dribble three-pointer happening for him. It was going to be a set shot. And that's what Tyrese looks like right now, which is great because he's a rookie, right? And if, you develop an off-the-dribble shot later, fine, even though his jumper doesn't look like a jumper that will lend well to taking one off the dribble. But with that said, we end up in this crazy, back and forth with them. They have the highest pace in the NBA right now. Their defense is abysmal. I mean, if they play the fucking Hawks or the Wizards, I mean, there's got to be a limit on points that can be scored in the game. They're going to have to cut it off in the third quarter. Whoever wins at the end of quarter three is the game winner, just because you can't have too many points. I mean, you're going to skew all the stats up and down NBA history. You just can't do it. I mean, you're going to have three wilts in that game if they play the Wizards or the Nets or the fucking Hawks. There's going to be a bunch of different wilts in that game. You're going to have, stat like 1970 stats where somehow somebody finishes with 40 and 20 rebounds and then this guy had 78 points and 36 free throws. It's just going to be confusing. You're going to have guys fouling out. Just end it at the end of the third quarter or just do college, 2 halves and keep it moving. Let's get that game done. We don't have time to just watch it. And what happens is in a game like yesterday or about 2 nights ago, I'm doing, whatever, it doesn't matter what I'm doing this, but in a game like that, you end up in this weird situation where by the end of the game, you don't know what you watched. I'll be honest. You kind of like, what the fuck, what just happened? And the reason why you're thinking that is because there are so many offensive plays. There's so many possessions in that game. It's hard to really, but it's like you blink and it's 12 minutes have passed. You're like, what just happened this quarter? It was just a sprint. It was just guys running. It was a relay race. You can't really single out any plays necessarily. I spent a lot of time having to watch the game. I watched the game twice. I looked at the stats. I was just confused by the game. You know what I mean? Well, essentially what happens is first quarter, Joe had a weird thing to him, weird body language, maybe something personal. I don't know. We get so used to, I think, especially me, I get so used to watching you get so used to watching guys like MJ or even LeBron or Kobe or, Tim Duncan, or even Steph today, I would say even Steph today and Kevin Durant, like guys who just seem to, it's like all they are basketball players. You could easily forget that these are human beings, and you could easily fall into this way where you're like, look, and you're like, man, these guys are you anything but a basketball player, right? Because it feels like you feel nothing else. You know, like there's just all this trauma happen. I remember when Dirk, there was a whole thing with Dirk's like Dirk had a wife. His wife was actually a con artist. This is why you would not even remember this happening, because there was just no reaction on the court. You had no idea. You know, it's happened like 2009 or something like that. I can't even remember because no one remembers. And you know, so when a guy like Joe, you're seeing somebody with like this malaise at times, and you know he's human, and we don't know. I don't think his malaise had anything to do with the team or anything that was happening on the floor. It seemed like he just had a weird malaise. Maybe he thought he didn't have to play road games this year. You know what I mean? Maybe he thought he could mail in the MVP and play 37 games. But I don't know, you know, whatever. So, you know, he has like a weird malaise to him. I noticed it in the first quarter. I want to say it's because in the first quarter it was already different. Lack of production in the first quarter, I was thinking, but not really. I mean, he scores 12 in the fourth quarter. And yeah, 13 the first three, or no, 10. I'm sorry, he scores 10 in the fourth quarter. And so he scores 12 in the fourth quarter. Essentially, what this game comes down to is the second and fourth quarter. In the first, but what happens in the first quarter, what's interesting about the first and third quarter, right, is in the first quarter, they're running. We're not ready. Our defense is not ready for them to get out and run, essentially. And that allows these guys they just start heating up. You know, easy rebound, easy layups, passing ahead, catching us off guard. And while we still win the first quarter, now they're already feeling it, right? So now Buddy is Buddy starting to warm up, and De'Aaron is warming up. Listen, Buddy, De'Aaron, and Tyrese, they're good. You know, they're good together. They are not going to shoot the way they shot in that fourth quarter. In that second quarter, I'm sorry. They're not going to shoot the way they shot in that second quarter ever again. I assure you of that. I mean, these guys were just fucking on fire. You know what I mean? They were just not only on fire, but shooting deep, somewhat contested three-pointers. You know what I mean? And De'Aaron is a league average three-point shooter. I mean, it just didn't make sense. You know what I mean? It just didn't make sense. And they're never, ever going to shoot that well again. And the third quarter, though, on the other hand, when we come out in the third quarter, they only scored 20 points in the third and fourth quarter. So they scored 71 in the first two quarters, 39 in the second, 32 in the first. And in the third quarter, the game gets ugly, right? There's just turnovers, there's fouls, there's a lot of stoppages. I mean, I felt like when I was watching the game, I felt like I was in the desert looking for water. Like, will this game end? Is this going to ever end? Or are we just going to get a fucking foul every 2 seconds? You know what is happening? And it was a weird game that way. But because that third quarter was so ugly, they never get a rhythm. And that pretty much they bury themselves over those 2 quarters, over that 2 stretches. Not just our defense does improve in the second half, but they're missing a lot of open shots. But the pace of the game is so weird in that third quarter. In the first quarter, it's a relay race. In the third quarter, it turns into something else. You know what I mean? It's like a 100-meter dash, stop, another 100-meter dash, stop. And it's almost a football game. It's just a fucking football game, which is boring and trash. So I don't know. It was weird. But you know, let's run down the list real quick. We'll talk about some of these guys. Danny's jumper doesn't travel. You know, I've been saying that all year. He's had some good games on the road, but generally his number's not going to travel, and it's not his fault because in the beginning he was forced to try to guard De'Aaron Fox multiple times. He just can't. He's just too slow. You see his knees are bow-legged. When your knees are bow-legged that way, shaped like a parentheses, your side-to-side movement is going to get hindered. You know, you're just going to get hindered. You need something a little more aerodynamic to move side to side. You know what I mean? You're not a crab or a lobster. So, you know, you can't guard De'Aaron Fox, unfortunately. But other than that, I don't think he played poorly per se. A couple stupid fucking turnovers, I'll say that. But that's him. That's Danny. You know, sometimes he gets these illusions of grandeur. He's going to dribble up. He's going to dribble full court for whatever reason. He thinks he's going to bring the ball up. Don't ever wave anyone off, Danny. If someone is calling for the ball, don't wave anyone. Same thing with you, Toby. Don't wave people off. You fall behind Ben. If Ben is wanting the ball, or if someone wants to pass the ball, if they want the ball to Ben, that one turnover, I will never forget things like this. The one turnover that Toby has is a play. I think it happens in the second quarter. I might be wrong. Is a play where I don't know who, somebody gets the rebound, gets it to Toby, and then says Ben, right? Points at Ben to give the ball to Ben, and Toby's like, "Nah, I got this." Turnover immediately is what he does. But you see how he improved. Look how it come around though. Only one turnover. You see, that's learning on the fly. Toby played really, really well. I thought Toby played well. You know what I mean? I thought that defensively, it was a weird, it's hard to even say who he was guarding half the time. Was he guarding Bagley? Was he guarding Harrison Barnes half the time? It was such a weird game. They spent so much time in transition, and we spent so much time having to guard in transition that matchups necessarily didn't really matter. All we knew was that Joe was guarding was at the rim essentially, and or guarding their centers, and it was a free for all on the perimeter. Whoever can get to whoever, just get there. So hard to say what, did Toby have a good or bad defensive game? I can't really say. I thought he had a dumb fucking foul, though. There was one foul. What happened? I'm trying to think what happened to this stupid foul. Where I think does Marvin Bagley drive on him, and he just kind of runs him out of bounds, and then he complains like, "Well, this is a foul. This is a foul. You ran him out of bounds. I mean, it's not football. It's not the Super Bowl." But in that fourth quarter, it's Toby. I mean, it's weird. The announcers really give a lot of credit to Shake when he gets injured. Too much credit. The announcers, as in, Mark and Allah, they give too much credit to Shake. And I'll speak on Shake in a minute. But really, the fourth quarter comes down to a few factors. It comes to one, Toby scoring 12 points in the fourth quarter. It comes to two, Joel scoring 10 points in the fourth quarter. Three, you could then put Ben Simmons having 3 assists. Those 3 assists, I think, were all three-pointers. It's the reason why Toby scored 12 points. And at the beginning of the quarter, give Dwight some love, man. Dwight's defense in the third and fourth quarter, I thought was really important. I thought Dwight became really disruptive in a good way. He had the one stupid fucking goaltending, which is obviously Dwight. If you catch a shot midair at your age right now, it's a goaltend. I promise you. Or it's an air ball. It's only one or two things. It's a goaltend or an air ball. You did not catch that legally. You need to know that. Don't even complain. Other than that, though, I thought he really made a difference on defense. What did he finish with? 2 blocks? 2 blocks, yeah, 2 blocks and that one whatchamacallit, the goaltend. I thought that Dwight's defense played a really big difference while Joe was out, and then when Joe came back, Joe essentially realized that this was not a game for him necessarily to score. He struggled finished with 25 points, I think, on 16 shots, right? 15 shots, 25 points on 15 shots, 13 or 14 from the free throw line, which is absolutely fucking insane. But he realized this wasn't necessarily the game for him to score, to assert himself that way. But I thought he finished with 6 success. Like, he had a couple good passes. Oh, actually, the one Toby 3-pointer in the fourth quarter comes from a really good pass. Joe gets doubled at the elbow on the opposite side of where Toby is and launches a pass across the court to Toby, and Toby hits that 3 big, and it was a big shot, great pass. A couple stupid turnovers, a couple times where Joe fell twice in this game. It just fell, flat out fell, caught the ball, tried to go into a pivot or a triple threat, and fell. So I just don't understand it. I'm going to be honest. I don't understand that. I will never understand that. Before, when he falls in motion, it's because he's trying to brace his. Let me turn this light on because it's getting dark out here. When he's in motion, it makes sense that he braces his fall. He braces his joints by falling on purpose to save his knee the extra damage. But to just fall because you fell is very confusing. I'll be honest with you. What is up with this overexposure of light? I mean, I turned the light on, but Lord have mercy. I mean, my face is radiant. I'm gonna have to turn the light off. I mean, it's obscene. It's obscene what's happening here. Anyway, okay. Where was I about him falling? Yeah, falling. I mean, what is that? You know what I mean? For those listening, wow, you have no idea what just happened. I mean, the overexposure of light is just crazy, and it has nothing to do with that light. I don't know what light. Oh, you know what? Maybe it has this. Let's do this here. Right. Oh, look at that. Softer light, a softer hue to accentuate my features. So just weird falling. Just falling. I keep on falling. Yeah, I'm not gonna sing, but it is a beautiful song. Shout out to Alicia Keys who who home wrecked the shit out of Swiss Beats, man. You know what? She didn't home wreck. We gotta grow up. But stop being misogynist. Stop being fucking misogynistic. We immediately, I'm sorry, I don't want to go on a tangent here, but we immediately, and I am not the first one to have said this about Alicia Keys. A million people have said this about Alicia Keys. Hey, how about that he was married and he was committed to a relationship that he then ruined? He cheated on his spouse. She did not home wreck. I mean, she did a little bit, but whose responsibility is that to maintain the wife's feelings? Anyway, so yeah, Joe, I don't know. Stop falling. All that to say, please stop falling, Joe. But other than that, scores 10 points in the fourth quarter. I think he has 4 rebounds in the fourth quarter and 2 assists or something like that. He has a block and a steal in the fourth quarter. I mean, Joe essentially decides, and Joe decides essentially how he's going to affect the game at that point, grabbing a ton of rebounds, getting his fouls, of course. And, it's funny because I'll always say, right, Joker, the argument between Joker and Joe is one of the more interesting who's better arguments, right? When this is all said and done, we'll be looking at Joker and Joel like we look at Tim and Dirk and Kevin Garnett, or how we look at, not a whole lot of other, or how we will look at Steph and Dame and Russell Westbrook, and Chris Paul will be like, what, because obviously Chris Paul comes earlier, but how does he fit in that conversation? You'll have all these conversations, these guys, the Bill Russell Wilt conversation, the Magic and Bird conversation. Well, you're going to have the Joe and Joker conversation when it's all done. And you'll be wondering who was the best. And Joker, I mean, either one of these guys, the ceiling is there is no ceiling, right? These guys are Lil Wayne of basketball, no ceilings. And they can score 50 on any given night. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people are hype on Joker right now because he just scored, he scored almost 50 twice last week, and deservedly. He's incredible. And Joker is an offense onto himself because of the passing, no question about it. But one thing that doesn't get mentioned, or one thing that should get mentioned more, aside from Joel's defense, obviously, is that the amount of fouls that Joe draws is also an offense onto itself. And the reason why is not that 13 points is an offense. It's that when you're drawing fouls on their big men, you're doing 2 things. One, you're getting their starting bigs out of the game early. That means that there's probably, by the logic, there's going to be less rim protection due to that, right? 2, you're putting them in the penalty earlier than other teams that have been a penalty. Well, that's an offense onto itself. You know what I mean? Because now guys are afraid to foul. Now their defense is a little bit more lax, says you don't want to foul and send someone to the line, right? So you're going to give up a little more space. The bigs are afraid to foul more often, and then by the fourth quarter, their bigs are so riddled with fouls, their defense is now even softer than it was, or they're getting fouled out of the game. That is a really underrated thing when we're talking about Joel Embiid's offense, right? What he brings, he doesn't have the passing. No one. There's 4 guys who can pass like Joker in the NBA. You know what I mean? One of them is named Luka. Chris Paul's like another one. Steph, James Harden, LeBron James. We're talking like those are the guys who pass better than Luka. I mean, better than Joker, essentially. And then outside of that is Joker. Just, a complete and total offense onto himself. But the foul calls that Joel gets need to be mentioned in that. You know what I mean? It's like a very underrated thing how you can just influence an entire offense, fuck up a whole defense just because you're drawing the amount of foul calls. And then not only are you drawing that amount of foul calls, but you make them pay every single time you get to the line. That is wildly underrated. So, Joker's the MVP. I mean, Joel is the MVP, of course. I don't think Joe was. He was, arguably the best player on the court yesterday. I thought this was a real team win for sure. The different guys showed up at different times, and I think Joe and Toby brought us home. Seth, his best game since coming back from the pandemic. Everyone can't wait to. I saw a post earlier today about Seth's free throw shooting. He's going to miss a free throw next game because now it's gotten too far. Where people are saying he's going to join. He has a chance to join the 50-50-100 club, which is no one will ever be in. Would be 50% field goal percentage, 50% 3-point percentage, 100% free throw percentage. Is not going to happen. But he played really, really well, shot really, really well, which is really important in a game where we needed the offense. Danny's not going. Toby shows up late, obviously only has 10 points for the first 3 quarters. Joe only has, 13 points through the first, or I'm sorry, 15 points through the first 3 quarters. Where's the scoring coming from at that point? Well, our bench kind of lifts us up a little bit. Seth really helps a big time, 22 points. He really pretty much scores that in the first half. And then the fourth quarter plays very little until Shake gets injured. But, his best game so far, and obviously he's talked about how COVID's affected him. He doesn't have his breathing back. We all know that, what I mean? It's not easy. But glad to see that, his shooting stroke came back, especially on the road. It's weird that our defense didn't show up this game, right? I mean, obviously they run us off. They're running up and down, so it's a little bit different. But defense shows up on the road. Offense doesn't show up on the road. For Seth is cold-blooded. Seth can have these moments where he just seems so calm and cold. He doesn't give a fuck where he's playing. He's going to make the shots that count. So I thought Seth played great. The MVP of the first half for us. Easily. Just his offense was fucking instrumental. Same thing with Furkan. Furkan finishes the first half 5 for 5. He finishes with 11 points in the first half, essentially, and then only 2 points in the second half. But we needed that in the first half. You know what I mean? In that first half, he obviously has that monster dunk, which is like a great example of why Hassan Whiteside, for those who don't know, like, you on any random given night, you look at Hassan Whiteside's numbers, and you're like, Jesus Christ, 25 blocks? How is he not starting? But then when you watch a game like yesterday, you realize exactly why, because no one can guard Joe, but Hassan essentially gets fouled. He immediately fouls Joe, immediately gets scored on by Joe like twice in a row as soon as he comes in the game. I mean, he only played 7 minutes yesterday because his defense, wow, he ends up with a lot of blocks. Same thing what I said about Andre Drummond. Guys are going to try him because they actually don't respect his defense. They don't respect him. Furkan gets the dunk of his career. Well, not the dunk of his career. He had that one reverse slam earlier this year. That's probably his best dunk. But that was a really, really nice dunk yesterday, or whatever, Tuesday night. And Toby is struggling on offense. Immediately just takes it into him and finishes over him. It just isn't really that much of. It's just not impressive defensively. And Furkan, I thought played really great in that first half. In the second half, he doesn't really do anything in the second half. However, the good thing, again, when we're in the spirit of learning, I've been talking to my therapist, and she's always impressed by my ability to learn, to self-reflect and adjust accordingly. And Furkan showed that yesterday. The green light is tempting. That green light can be tempting, brother. Let me tell you, the green light can be as tempting as anything on the planet of Earth, the Earth planet. Anything, there's very few things as tempting as a green light. And Furkan managed to go 5 for 5 in the first half and then 0 for 2 in the second half. That's impressive. In previous, I'm surprised he didn't finish 5 for 14. It's possible. It's possible, brother. I promise you. So good for him. Played well. I thought Shake did play well, 1 for 1 for 3-pointer. So I guess his shot, we got a clue to where his shot is. He hasn't found it yet, but we have a clue. We're the gumshoes are on the case. You know what I mean? They're finding it. He only went 1 for 1, but he's been doing a really good job getting to that mid-range jump shot, right below the line, right below the foul line in the key, and really draining that shot. I thought he's been doing a really good job. He hasn't been able to get to the rim as much lately. I think guys are pretty much keying on his drive because his shot is so is just missing. Is milk cartoned. But I thought he played okay. Tyrese, he tried every trick in the book on Tyrese Halliburton. Halliburton just said, no, we're not going to have that today. And he ate that shit alive. You know what I mean? And Shake was begging for a call, was not going to get that call. Tyrese is good, man. Listen, this Kings team is interesting. Once Fox started going, and I'm gonna give some love to Tyrese, man. Something about some of these rookies like Tyrese, like LaMelo, the two easiest ones to think about. You know what? And Tyrese Maxey too have this like nature, this childlike wonderment to them. This innocence where they're just doing something that we haven't seen on a basketball court, and that's fucking having fun. These guys just like they're having a good fucking time out there, man. That's like a thing that people forget all the time. Go out and have fun. Joe's been talking about that for how many years now? I wasn't having fun. Well, look what he does when he's having fun. He's a fucking MVP of the NBA right now. I don't give a fuck what anyone says, And having fun is such an underrated thing because you're playing free, you're playing confident. And guys like Tyrese, Maxey, Halliburton, and LaMelo with his airy, walks like a fucking water sprite. like some sort of fairy, but not, I don't mean it in a gay way, not that there's anything wrong with that, but just I mean in the like this like floating around and fucking he don't even know what's happening on the planet. He doesn't even know. He woke up one day and said there was an election today on 11 in November. There's an election. Who's the president? He didn't even know what's happening to the earth. Is getting warmer. Wow, that's crazy. Where's my basketball at though? You know what I mean? Just out there having a great fucking time, and guys you want to play with. And Halliburton looks like that, playing great defense. You got to give them credit. And then Fox is taking a mini leap. They need something. They need something. They need a legit wing that is not Harrison Barnes, unfortunately. Harrison, I'm sorry, Harrison. We've had enough of you. We know what you are now. The Warriors knew what you were years ago. They replaced you with Kevin Durant, which, I mean, that was obvious, And teams started taking shots on you and paying you too much money, and now they know. We got the data. You're a backup player. You're a bench guy right now. But they need like a legitimate wing, a legitimate wing to help them, like a legitimate, maybe they could probably start Tyrese at the 3, but then they need a legitimate 4. I don't like Bagley playing the 4. I don't like that at all. He has enough trouble defending. He for sure cannot defend the 4. We saw it multiple times yesterday, whether it was Ben fucking driving into him. The one time they called the offensive foul. I mean, it looked like he WandaVisioned. Ben WandaVisioned Bagley out of the stadium almost. You know what I mean? My man was gone. He was gone. He was off air. He was off planet. Out of here. You know what I mean? That was pretty wild. He just can't defend. He doesn't have the foot speed to defend drivers like that. He's a center. He's a center is what he is. So having a legitimate 4 would really help solidify them. A 4 with size, like a Jonathan Isaac, for example, would really help solidify them long in size, or like a Cove, like Cove. Even though I'm not a fan of Cove, but Cove would be like the perfect length. Is switchable, can defend can defend bigs. You know what I mean? Like a guy like that would help them big time. Would make them a more unique unit. What they think they have with Harrison, they don't have, and they shouldn't have this. I don't like this 4-5 combination here. Especially when you want to get out and run. You want to get out and run, but you have 2 big men. Why? So how's that work? You know what I mean? You're getting out and running with 3 guys at a time. You know what I mean? Like, it don't really make a ton of sense. I mean, even though to Rashawn's credit and to Bagley's credit, they're athletic and they're fast, but it's nothing like having a legitimate wing player to run with. So, either way, Shake, I thought Shake did play well. Hopefully he's okay. You know what I mean? He got injured. He did enough to steady us, I think, at times. Scored 5 points. I think there was 5 points in the fourth quarter, I think he scored. Yeah, I think he had 5 points in the fourth quarter. I mentioned Dwight. I thought Dwight played really, really well on defense. I thought Matisse going for the coveted 2-2-2 stat line. You know what I mean? 2 rebounds. Almost there at 2 assists, almost there at 2 blocks and 2 personal fouls. Couldn't quite get to the 2 points or the 2 field goal attempts. But with that said, his defense, again, his defense over the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season has been very impactful, more impactful than it was at the beginning of the season, and impactful enough that we can eat the lack of offense right now. You know what I mean? Especially, what's funny about Matisse is, what Matisse is to a fast-paced team like the Kings is the equivalent of dropping a Mentos in a Coke bottle. You know what I mean? And allowing, or not a Mentos, an Alka-Seltzer tablet in a Coke bottle and allowing it to explode. That's what Matisse is when you put him into a high-paced offense where he's just going to be tipping passes and just flying across the lane and doing all types of crazy shit and causing havoc. I thought he played really great defense on De'Aaron. I mean, De'Aaron's fourth quarter is miserable. He finishes 3 for 13 in the fourth quarter. It's bad. You know what I mean? And a lot of that is because of Matisse's defense. I mean, it took a team defense to stop him, especially once Buddy went cold, and Tyrese didn't score in the second half at all. And I thought Matisse played a big part of that defense. His defense played a big part. So, Ben, I'm sorry. I didn't even talk about Ben. I thought Ben played okay. You know, not a ton to say about Ben. In a game like this, I want to see Ben finish with, 3 steals, 2 blocks, and 20 points, something like that. It's a fast-paced game, get up and go. But, it can't be understated. We know about the assist. The man creates so many three-pointers. It's what his specialty is creating three-pointers. You know what I mean? Again, like I've said before, part of that is inflated because he passes it every single time he drives as opposed to ever going to the rim. But I do think he played well yesterday. You know what I mean? I thought he was aggressive in spots. He tried to pick his spots. Even to his credit, when Joe came out after, he had the blood, somebody tried to circumcise his knee, Ben immediately drives to the rim. He gets the offensive foul, but I applaud I applaud his aggressiveness in that situation. So I thought he played okay. His defense was okay. I mean, it was, again, we got punched in the mouth in the first half. We just weren't ready for that pace. You know what I mean? We just weren't ready for that pace. And then in the second half, the game got dirtied up. I can't even explain how that happened, honest. I really can't. I've watched it twice, and I'm still kind of confused. Just gets muddied up for whatever reason, and we win. We hold them to 20 points in the third and fourth quarter, and that's it. That's it, folks. That's all, folks. I mean, how the fuck that up? Anyway, that's all, folks. And that's it. So we got the Trailblazers coming up. It's a revenge game. You know what I mean? It's a revenge game. They're going to have Dame back, though. Dame at home is, essentially like the equivalent of going to fight Thanos on Titan. Tony Stark saying, let's bring the fight to him. How did that work out for you? He threw a moon at you. He threw a fucking moon at you. And that's what going to Dame's house is going to be, unless the person going to his house is Steph Curry. Then it is no longer Thanos throwing a moon at you. It is a puppy throwing a chewable bone at you. You know what I mean? And Steph just has him on a string. I'm sorry. He doesn't deserve. I love Dame so much. It's just Steph has Michael Jordan him. He has become the Clyde Drexler to Steph's Michael Jordan. So, and I've talked about that mad times. And then we got big game against the Jazz. I'm sorry, against the Jazz. Big game against the Jazz. You know what I mean? The Jazz are playing phenomenal. They've sped up the pace. Mike Conley is playing extremely well this year. Last year was abysmal, honestly. He looked roasted. You know what I mean? He looked like a fucking chestnut on an open fire, and it's fucking December 25th. My man is roasted. But this year, he stepped up. He looks good. You know what I mean? He looks like he's back to an extent. And they're just playing well, man. Donovan took a little leap, because of the playoffs yesterday. I think he finished, beat the Celtics. I'm not going to say single-handedly, but, 36 points, beat them. Straight up just beat them. Him and Rudy have set aside their differences. Ingles and Bogdanovich have set aside their differences, looking like the same exact person, but in two different bodies and from two different countries, but they're the exact same basketball player, and they've come to an accordance that they will work together for the betterment of the team. So, they're playing really well. That's going to be a big fucking game. Let me tell you something. If we win that game, that separates us. That's if we win that game, Joe comes out, lays the hammer down as he does on Rudy, comes and lays that hammer down on Rudy, gives him like a 35 and 12 and 3 assists or something like that, and we win, the MVP is now his. You know what I mean? It's his to lose. That's going to be a big fucking game. So that's it, everybody. Everyone wash your hands. You know the drill. Wash your hands. There'll be a podcast coming out about WandaVision. I might do last week's episode, but now, I keep ending up in this weird place where I just want to see what's going to happen in the next episode and then talk about it. I'm going to talk about it because there's mad Marvel shit to talk about, so that's going to be great. That's it. Wash your hands. Stay safe out there. Wear a fucking mask. Why don't you get a mask with a different face because you're ugly? Get The Rock's mask, the mask of The Rock's face. Not that The Rock is handsome, but he's handsome. He's a good-looking guy. I got no problems, no qualms saying that he's a good-looking person. No problem with that. Because your face ain't doing it. My face ain't doing it either. But I got a big fucking face. And the mask only does so much for my face. I got to get like a bank robber mask. One that hangs down like a V-neck almost. It's like a V-neck. It like gives you the effect of a V-neck from your face, though. Anyway, wash your hands, wear a mask. Black Lives Matter. Arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor. You know the drill. That's it.
Yeah. Justice for the blind. Just something that'll find in the rhymes that are coming from my mind. Used to come